It's a component of a much larger process of maturation of a living cosmos.
Mm. So I want to talk a little bit about, in your title you have both AI and ET, of course, but let's begin with one of those. ET, what role does ET have in all this, do you think?
Well, it's an interesting notion that, and something that I've written quite a bit about, that we're not alone in this cosmos, but the specific idea that I like to use to introduce the concept is that it is an incontrovertible fact that we earthly beings are living our daily lives in the midst of extraterrestrial entities, and that we essentially depend on them for our existence. They did not originate here, but conducted an epic migration spanning millions of light years that dwarfs the fictional interstellar voyages of the Starship Enterprise. And what are these? Well, they're not the little green men that we traditionally think of. They are the atoms that combine to form the molecules from which our bodies and virtually everything in our world and solar system are made. And these extraterrestrials were, for the most part, born not in the fireball of the Big Bang, but were hammered into existence in the forges of supernova explosions, and then essentially travel to Earth to constitute our world, the flesh that constitutes our body, and the air that we breathe. And the truly incredible thing about these entities, and I'll just pick out one, the most extraordinary in my view, which is the much maligned element carbon, the foundation of life as we know it. The peculiar process of stellar alchemy, what is known as the triple alpha process, by which elemental carbon is coaxed into existence, is so delicate and improbable that it prompted Sir Fred Hoyle, that giant of British astronomy, to make the most famous and controversial remark of his career. And he said, and by the way, he was an adamant atheist. Would you not say to yourself, some super-calculating intellect must have designed the properties of the carbon atom. Otherwise, the chance of my finding such an atom through the blind forces of nature would be utterly minuscule. And this is Hoyle again, a common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics as well as with chemistry and biology, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. The number one calculates from the facts seems to me so overwhelming as to put this conclusion almost beyond question. And that's quite an assertion by a committed atheist. But he simply looked at the details of the triple alpha process and said this is simply too finely balanced, too, if you will, designed in appearance to be the possible outcome of mere chance.
Well, do you think that implies that there is something or someone else, if you will, kind of outside of our world or the creation that we know that have put these things together?
Well, some entity, and that is the essence of my hypothesis, that our cosmos, with its peculiarly bio-friendly, anthropic, if you will, laws and physical constants, which are inherently they're arbitrary in the same sense that the sequence of a DNA molecule is arbitrary, and thus constitute the perfect raw material for a coding device. That those constants and physical laws are indeed the outcome of a prior instance of cosmic maturation, which culminated in the birth of a new universe. That would be our universe, that is endowed, like its mother universe, with pro-life friendly laws and physical constants. So yes, we are the outcome, I believe, of a prior instance of cosmic evolution.
And by the way, do you subscribe to the idea that we've, been going here in this creation, this universe, for about 16.5 billion years or so?
Yeah, it's about. Well, yeah, I think it's about the latest. microwave measurements, I think the WMAP microwave measurements, I think it's in the range of about 14 billion years.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. Yeah.
Which it's measured it with the, this is the truly amazing thing is there's a lot of really exciting new thinking about theorizing about cosmology, but aided by an incredible new era of precision observational cosmology. So we're the new instruments are just giving us a wealth of data that really does inform and test the theorizing.
You mentioned the term stellar alchemy. I like that. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, well, except for the lightest elements, hydrogen, helium, and a little bit, I think, of one other element, which were born in the Big Bang. Except for those, the other elements at the inception of our universe did not exist. They were created through the process of stellar pressure and heat. The heavier elements were born in the hearts of giant supernova when they exploded. They were essentially the product of intense nuclear fusion. They were the neutrons, protons were pushed together to form heavier elements going all the way up to uranium. But they did not exist at the beginning. They were formed in the hearts of exploding stars, and that's a universally accepted scenario.
And so, in one way, then as well, what you're saying is that they were they were designed to do this as well. That was their job.
Exactly correct, and that's what Fred Hoyle was saying, that the delicacy of the precision of the engineering, if you will, particularly the engineering that yields carbon and oxygen, those are the most conspicuous examples. Is simply it would be and I wrote it in my first book, if the details of engineering that are embedded in the process of stellar nucleosynthesis, if those were received in the form of a radio transmission by the SETI Institute in Mountain View, California, the champagne corks would be popping.
It's like clear evidence that this is intelligence.
It's as clear as I think one can reasonably imagine.
Right. I want to talk a little bit more about kind of, I guess, how you came or how you worked out your theory. Did it just one day kind of occur to you, or did it take a long time for you to think about this, so to speak?
Yeah, it's interesting, and it began almost. I've done a lot of writing for Complexity, which is the journal of the Santa Fe Institute, on a variety of subjects, and complexity theory is sort of a unique discipline because it is so from the get-go it is inherently multidisciplinary. It takes the approach, for instance, of biologists and applies it to economics or geopolitics. It will take computer science and then look at it from the perspective of biological evolution, so that you get study of phenomena like genetic algorithm or evolutionary computation, where the computational algorithms are essentially coaxed into being through truly a Darwinian process with some really quite startling results. In my case, I began my quest almost accidentally, and what I was attempting to do was to answer what seemed to me a very straightforward question: what process? And I began with the work of a physicist by the name of Lee Smolin, who has the idea that new universes are born in the hearts of black holes, and that the explanation for our bio-friendly cosmos is essentially a kind of collateral effect of universes that tend to become more adept at creating progeny than others. But there was something missing in his concept of the universe as replicator. And it was an element that stemmed from the thinking of one of the greatest scientific geniuses of the 20th century, and one of the greatest mathematicians who ever lived, by the name of John von Neumann.
Mm-hmm.
And Neumann demonstrated the logical necessity of four elements in any self-replicating